Where's my second belt? I've already got this one.
I'm the king of Dublin. I'm the world champion.
At the king of Dublin, yeah? You're looking at him.
Conor McGregor, the first UFC fighter to ever clutch 2 championship belts at once, featherweight to lightweight, a double crown king. With punches that cut like ice-cold blades, trash talk that rattled the entire MMA world, and a jaw-dropping climb from a nobody plumber in Dublin to a billion-dollar throne, McGregor blew past being just a fighter. He was raw arrogance personified, an unyielding icon, a damn near immortal saint in the UFC octagon, where even the biggest legends bow their heads at the sound of his name. But that dazzling shine, it cracked fast. From going full psycho and attacking a bus at UFC 223 like some unhinged maniac, to throwing his signature left-hand counter at random folks in a bar brawl, to spewing insults at Khabib Nurmagomedov, so vile they turned the cage into the only place to settle the score. The real gut punch came in November 2024, when an Irish court slapped him with a €248,000 fine for sexual assault, cranking the hate to a fever pitch.
A woman who accused the mixed martial arts fighter Conor McGregor of raping her in a hotel in Dublin 6 years ago has won a civil case against him. The jury has found McGregor liable and ordered him to pay Nikita Hand €250,000 in damages.
From the peak of glory to the depths of disgrace, McGregor morphed from an unbreakable legend into a face even his own fans turned their backs on. So, what's the real deal? Is he just a bloodthirsty egomaniac drunk on power and pride? Or is he merely a casualty of the colossal shadow he cast himself? And the bigger question, is this the final curtain for a legend, or just the opening act of a darker, uglier tragedy? From hurling a dolly at a bus carrying rivals, to landing a punch on an elderly man in a bar, to facing shocking legal allegations and a string of brash social media outbursts, McGregor has turned his own name into a bloody battlefield, paving the way for a self-inflicted downfall that has left the world stunned. So what happened? And why has this UFC madman fallen so fast? Him past every limit. He jumped into pro MMA in 2008, tearing through cage warriors with a string of jaw-dropping knockouts. By 2013, the UFC snapped him up after he flattened Marcus Brimage in a blink-and-you-miss-it knockout. In just 2 years, he carved out a legend, knocking out Diego Brandao in front of a roaring Dublin crowd, then delivering that iconic 13-second KO of Jose Aldo at UFC 194 to snatch the featherweight belt. Not content, he steamrolled Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205 in 2016, becoming the first fighter to grip 2 UFC titles at once.
I've spent a lot of time, Joe, slating everybody in the company. Backstage, I'm starting fights off everybody. I've ridiculed everyone on the roster. I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants. This is what I dreamed into reality. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks good.
We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
We're not here to take part, we're here to take over. That line, bellowed after his Brandao win, became McGregor's battle cry, a middle finger to the world, screaming unbreakable spirit and relentless ambition. He didn't just crush opponents in the cage, he owned the whole damn spotlight. His clash with Khabib Nurmagomedov at UFC 229 in 2018 pulled in 2.4 million pay-per-view buys, making it the fattest cash cow in MMA history. His Instagram hit 46 million followers by 2025. Forbes crowned him the world's highest-paid athlete in 2021, raking in an estimated $180 million from endorsement deals, movie gigs, and his proper number 12 whiskey hustle. But that blinding spotlight, it turned into his Achilles heel. The same fans who worshipped him like a god had no clue that behind those victories, cracks were quietly spreading, where swagger curdled into arrogance and the drive to conquer twisted into a reckless spiral. One of the defining moments that flipped Conor McGregor's world upside down was that unhinged bus attack at UFC 223 in April 2018, a full-throttle explosion of rage aimed straight at his looming rival, Khabib Nurmagomedov. McGregor, rolling deep with a crew of about 20, started chucking chairs, a hulking metal dolly weighing hundreds of pounds, and whatever else they could grab at a bus packed with UFC fighters gearing up for the Brooklyn event. Glass shattered everywhere, shards flying, blood pooling on the floor. At least 2 fighters got banged up bad. Ray Borg had to pull out of his fight with a cut-up eye, while Michael Chiesa and others choked on pepper spray fumes from canisters McGregor's posse lobbed in. That stunt didn't just land McGregor in cuffs right there on the spot. Slapped with charges of assault, disorderly conduct, and property damage, it also tanked 2 major fights, screwing over peers like Tony Ferguson and Khabib.
Tonight, our first look at body cam video from the Miami Beach police the day they arrested MMA fighter Conor McGregor. Here's CBS 4's Ty Russell.
He doesn't have anything on him, right? No jewelry.
The chaos went viral like a wildfire, with millions watching clips of McGregor grinning through the mayhem, clutching a golf club, and barking taunts like he was pulling some big promotional prank instead of committing a legit crime. New York cops cut him loose on $50,000 bail, but the court of public opinion wasn't so forgiving. "I don't need a guy who's good at kicking people," one longtime fan vented on Twitter, capturing the widespread disgust. "I need a man who owns his crap." A slew of UFC fighters, from Nate Diaz to Daniel Cormier, ripped him as a coward and a danger, while UFC boss Dana White called it the dumbest thing I've ever seen. The whole mess clashed hard with the sharp-witted, PPV-pumping showman McGregor had built himself up to be. For the first time, fans saw a Conor ruled by raw emotion, not control. The UFC hit him with a 6-month suspension and a $50,000 fine, but instead of cooling off, McGregor doubled down on social media. "I acted on instinct to protect myself and my crew." That weak excuse only fanned the flames, sparking the #BoycottMcGregor hashtag and nudging some smaller sponsors to bail. Barely a few weeks later, McGregor had folks fuming again when he sucker-punched a 50-something guy named Desmond Keogh at a Dublin bar. The video showed him clocking Keogh right in the face, all because the dude passed on a shot of proper number 12 whiskey. This wasn't strategic trash talk anymore, this was a straight-up thug bullying a harmless guy. "Conor used to inspire me, now he's just a bully," a young fighter remarked. McGregor tossed out a Twitter apology, but then blamed it on standing up for my brand. A 6-month suspended sentence and a bar ban didn't slow him down. Instead, he shelled out $1.5 million to buy the Marble Arch pub outright and banned Keogh from stepping foot in it, piling on accusations that he was flexing cash to dodge accountability. And the scandals just kept piling up, like a runaway train with no brakes, each incident turning cracks into gaping chasms. The lawsuits and investigations didn't stop at physical fights. They bled into vile words and shady behavior, mocking Khabib's Dagestani roots with bigoted jabs, tossing out misogynistic comments on his own podcast, and even calling for overthrowing the government during Dublin riots. Though a hate speech probe got dropped in March 2025, his image kept tanking. By June 2025, in Ibiza, McGregor floored a nightclub worker at 6 a.m., landing the guy in the hospital. Spanish cops opened an investigation while he posted party pics like nothing happened. If McGregor had ever once chosen humility, owned his screw-ups, the story might have veered a different way. But he always leaned into in-your-face arrogance, buying bars to flex power, posting celebratory shots after brawls, turning scandals into attention-grabbing stunts. The result? His anti-fan army ballooned, mockery hashtags flooded feeds, and his public image slid from towering champ to a walking symbol of hubris and letdown. These weren't just personal flubs. They were a betrayal of trust, a one-time idol stabbing his worshippers in the back. And when that fracture reached the octagon, his supposed sacred ground, the collapse became inevitable. If the scandals outside the octagon were the first cracks in Conor McGregor's armor, the string of losses inside the cage and the chaos that followed obliterated his image, turning him from an untouchable king into a hollow shadow of himself, a fighter who once ruled supreme, now stumbling through a self-inflicted spiral of ruin. The loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov at UFC 229 in 2018 was the first real sledgehammer to his towering ego. After spewing vile insults, calling Khabib a terrorist, mocking Islam, even posting a pig feces photo, McGregor strutted into the cage oozing confidence, predicting a first-round knockout. Reality hit like a freight train. Khabib's grappling and ground and pound crushed him, forcing a tap-out at 3:03 of round 4, his face swollen, nose shattered. The defeat sparked a post-fight melee when Khabib leaped out of the cage to brawl with McGregor's crew, landing both fighters record-breaking fines. Sprawled on the canvas, McGregor didn't shut up. He kept swinging on Twitter, branding Khabib a coward, turning a sports loss into a years-long vendetta. The collapse hit its peak at UFC 264 in July 2021, when McGregor's leg snapped in a gruesome loss to Dustin Poirier, a guy he'd dusted with ease 7 years earlier. This was the trilogy decider. McGregor swaggered in vowing to end Poirier's career. But one round in, his left kick slammed into Poirier's calf, letting out a sickening crack, his tibia split in half, bone jutting through skin. Poirier took the TKO via injury while McGregor writhed on the mat, still hurling insults at Poirier's family. Joe Rogan called it classless and unworthy of a former champ. Longtime fans admitted they saw a Conor who'd lost his way. Even Dana White chimed in, "Conor's not that hungry fighter anymore. He's got everything and maybe that's killed his drive."
I used to admire Conor for his fighting spirit, man. but seeing him lying there with a broken leg, still screaming at his opponent, I don't know, dude, it just felt pathetic.
Post-leg break, McGregor dove headfirst into a self-destructive tailspin where partying and suspected substance abuse became his biggest foes, morphing him from a fighting machine into a faded ghost. He ballooned from 70 kilograms to over 90 kilograms, muscles bulging unnaturally under whispers of steroids, rumors fueled by training pics with Ito Portal that showed none of his old-school agility. Instagram clips had him slurring, jaw-twitching, barely stringing together a full sentence, eyes bloodshot and voice shaky, dead giveaways of heavy drinking and maybe worse. The physical decline forced him to pull out of UFC 303, and by August 2025, the UFC officially scratched him from their active roster. The November 2024 civil verdict was a knockout blow, not just legally but to his rep, piling onto his cage failures for a full-blown tragedy. A Dublin court ordered McGregor to pay over €248,000 to Nikita Hand for a 2018 sexual assault, an incident he insisted was consensual. But doctor testimony about bruises and a recorded post-incident chat convinced the jury he'd brutally assaulted her. By July 2025, he lost an appeal, coughing up another €1.5 million in legal costs, with the court slamming him for malicious abuse of process. Those stumbles came with a brutal price tag. Proper Number 12, the whiskey brand that made him a multimillionaire, scrubbed his name and face from the bottles. Sales tanked 40% in a single quarter, retailers yanking it off shelves. IO Interactive quietly axed his voiced character from Hitman. And instead of owning up, McGregor dropped a single tweet admitting mistakes, then doubled down claiming it was all consensual. That half-assed mea culpa only proved his lack of sincerity and sheer recklessness. Worse still, the fallout bled into his personal life. Dee Devlin, the woman who'd stood by him since his broke days, publicly defended him, calling the victim an opportunist. But that blind loyalty couldn't save him, especially when McGregor himself admitted to cheating on her in 2025, groveling with a public apology. No honor left, no anchor to hold him steady. The result, the notorious persona McGregor spent years crafting lies in tatters torn apart by his own hands. From an unbeatable champ, an Irish icon plastered across gym walls and Dublin streets, he's become a pariah erased from his own homeland. From a name that lit up PPV records, he's now a social media punching bag, followers dropping from 50 million to 46 million, drowned in outrage. This isn't fate's cruel twist, it's a tragedy he brewed himself. The total collapse of a man who seemed untouchable but lost it all to his own arrogance and sins. Conor McGregor's saga lays bare a brutal paradox of success. The spotlight can hoist a man up to legend status, but it can just as easily become his Achilles heel, sparking his own self-destruction. McGregor was once the unbreakable icon, a Dublin plumber who stormed the UFC throne, forcing the world to bow in awe. But his arrogance and delusions of invincibility shoved him into a whirlwind of scandals and self-sabotage. The first lesson hits hard, the razor-thin line between confidence and arrogance. Confidence can push you past limits, but when it curdles into arrogance, it's a fire that torches everything. McGregor swaggered from the cage to real life, acting untouchable, thinking octagon wins meant he owned the world. Harsh truth, the law, morality, and public respect don't bend for fame. Every punch thrown outside the ring, every venomous taunt that crossed the line was a self-inflicted stab slicing through the trust he'd built. Next up, responsibility. Hit the top and you're not just living for yourself, you're carrying a whole community, a generation of admirers. McGregor was Ireland's dream, but instead of guarding that image, he flaunted his power, buying bars to settle grudges or spinning scandals for clout. Those moves didn't just dent his rep, they left fans who saw him as a role model gutted. Success isn't just a privilege, it's a duty he forgot. Another lesson lies in handling defeat. Losing in sports is normal, even for legends. But McGregor didn't see losses as chances to grow. He turned them into fuel for grudges, lashing out at rivals and flashing bitterness. From the Khabib beatdown to the Poirier leg break, instead of owning his limits, he doubled down with excuses and bravado. That attitude turned defeats into stains instead of stepping stones. Then there's the lesson of balance. Fame, money, and glory can throw you off if your inner compass isn't rock solid. McGregor leaned into partying, substances, and flashy excess, losing the focus and discipline that once made him king. When your inner grit can't match the outer shine, success becomes a weight you can't carry. Ultimately, this tale screams one truth: the fall isn't fate's doing, it's self-inflicted. McGregor didn't crumble because of age or tougher opponents, he got swallowed by the massive shadow he cast. It's a stinging lesson for anyone chasing greatness: stay sharp in the spotlight, know when to stop short of arrogance, and never forget that responsibility and character are what keep you standing long-term. McGregor's story isn't just a fighter's tragedy, it's a warning for every corner of life. In the end, the real enemy isn't the guy across the cage, it's the arrogance and chaos inside you. Fail to conquer that and even a legend gets erased. Regarding your question, this translation sticks to the serious, analytical tone of your text, mirroring the conversational yet sharp storytelling style you requested. If you want a version that's more emotionally charged with vivid metaphors like self-burning flames or blinding spotlight, I can amp it up for a more poetic, dramatic vibe. Just let me know which way you want to lean. Conor McGregor's story is a tragedy penned by his own hand, from the peak of faith and respect through the cracks of arrogance to the abyss of isolation. He lost trust when he deliberately abused it, turning fans from cheerleaders into mournful witnesses. He lost respect when his antics outside the octagon shattered his image as an unyielding warrior, leaving young fighters not inspired but warned, and he lost his standing, not just in the UFC but across the entertainment world, as deals crumbled and his name became a burden. This isn't just one guy's downfall, it's a gut-punch reminder of how fame, cash, and ego can rot someone from the inside out, turning victories into chains if you don't hold tight to core values: discipline, accountability, humility. McGregor was once proof that dreams could come true. Now, he's a stark lesson that holding on to yourself matters more than any belt, because that spotlight can burn out in one reckless moment. Are the greatest wins always tied to the steepest costs, and are we watching a hero who torched himself with victories that came too easy?